Hi everyone. So this is a beginner's video for Affinity Designer. This video is based towards sublimation. It is not a general Affinity video at all. It is targeted for people who have never used Affinity. Okay, for those who bought it, opened it up, and then they got scared and they closed it all back down again and haven't gone back to it. Or if you're trying to decide a software to buy, you can see if this is a software that will suit you and if you think you're able for it. So it is a pure beginner's video, okay? Now, the only thing I'm going to do with you here is I'm going to show you how to bring something in and print it. Because a lot of the time with sublimation, that's all you're going to be doing. So as scary as it all looks, there's only a handful of things that you need in here to achieve that. So to print, you don't need everything. So we're going to go in and open up Affinity. So it's Affinity Designer 2 edition now. Some people might have the old Affinity, well, it still works. They're just not doing updates on it. Now, when you open it up, this is what comes up, okay? So this is going to be basically what size you want your design to be. So if you have an A4 printer, you're pretty much going to want an A4 page, okay? Now you can change that. There's A3, you could change it to mug size, you could paper, you could change to anything you wanted really. But the majority of people are going to be picking A4. So when that comes up, you're just going to double click on your A4. And there you have your page. So this is an A4 page, it's real life. What you see on this page is what's going to come out of your printer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the setup. So the document. So if you wanted this landscape, you're kind of probably saying to yourself, what's that blue line for? That blue line is just a margin. Okay, and we can easily get rid of that. If you're using an Epson or a Sawgrass, there is a print border and it's usually about 2 millimeters. Okay, so this is about 25 millimeters here. So the way to change everything here is by going to Document Setup, and that is right here, or you can go into File, Document Setup here. So when you go in, there's only about 3 things in here you're going to need, and that's only if you need them. So everything is set up, so it's just your units. So do you work with millimeters? Do you work with centimeters? Or do you prefer inches? So whatever one you prefer, you pick. Okay? So I'm going to leave it on millimeters. Now, for this here, the only thing really that you're going to need is this. So if you wanted it to be landscape, you just uncheck the portrait. That's it. And okay. And now you can see your document is on landscape. So you're probably saying, what's this blue line about? So we're going to go back into our document setup and your margins here. Okay, see there about 25, the bottom is 30. So basically if we really want to have it in, we could put 2 millimeters in. But in fairness, I don't use margins at all. So I'm going to uncheck the margins. Okay, and you can see on my screen now, it'll disappear. So if you see in our document setup, all we've done is millimeters. In our dimensions, we changed from portrait to landscape. And then our margins, we took them out. And that was it. So that's your A4 page now in landscape. You just go back in if you want a portrait again, document setup, dimensions, and portrait. And okay. And there you go. So I'm going to change that back to landscape. So now, what you really want to do now is bring in a file. So if you want to bring in a file, that file has to be already downloaded onto your PC. So you've gone to Etsy and you've bought a file and you downloaded it and it's in your folder. So it has to be there, okay, for you to bring it in. So I'm going to show you 2 ways. So you can bring in a file and open file and place. I recommend just using file and place because if you bring in file and open, and you may come across this, so I'll show you here. File and open, just bring in a file and open. And as you can see here, there's my file. Now, if you look, I can't do anything with this. And it's background image, okay? Now I can unlock that and then I can move it around and do things. But the difference with the place, now there's a lot more technical differences, but you don't need to know it. It's just going to confuse you. We'll just go to File and New, and we'll do our A4 again. Document Setup. I'll get rid of my, I'm going to change the landscape and I'll get rid of my margins. And OK. So here, when you get a new page, you'll see they're all up here. All right. This is where each page will be. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go File and Place. I'll pick the same image and open. And you can see this little arrow here. So I just put it where I want it. And now you can see the image is coming in at a smaller image, more reasonable image. And if you look to the side here, it's a JPEG. Whereas before, when you looked, it was a background. Okay. So with this JPEG image here, I can move it straight away. I don't need to unlock it. So I'm just going to enlarge it there. So this is the image. So now all you have to do is size the image that you want it to be. So if I was putting this on a mug, my kind of average would be looking at 80 by 80 millimeters for one side of a mug. So if I was over here and I look at the width and the height, if you can't find it, it's in transform. Some people have an issue finding the measurements. So here's your width and height. So if I change this to 80 by 80, you can see now it's done it, but it's slightly distorted. Okay, the image was in a rectangle and I've tried to push it all into a square. So to combat this is you could crop the image. Here's one way. So if I just go edit and undo and edit and undo. If I go over here to the vector crop tool, so I'll click that and you can see it's giving me these little things here on the corner. So I can crop that into a more square image. Doesn't have to be exact because you can do that yourself. I'll press my select tool. Now, after you use things in Affinity, okay, like the text, the crop tool, if you're making a square or a circle, you always need to go back to select tool. So it's called move tool. So basically, if I am in a square, I'll show you. If I try to move that, it's not moving, it's just drawing more for me. So if you ever come across this, you know that you need to go and hit your move tool. With the move tool, now I can go in and do what I need to do. So here we have our image now. So now if I go in and hit 80 by 80, you can see it's more proportion now because it was originally a square. We cropped it to a square and we're just changing it a little bit then. So if this was what I wanted to print, okay, that's fine. So let's say this was going on a mug. So I'm going to do a bit of writing on the other side of the mug. So I'll just go in to see this A here. This is Artistic Text Tool. If I click on that, it's going to give me the option then to type. So have a yogi kind of day. All right, now, same again. If I want to move that or do anything, I can't. It's going to keep telling me to write something. I need to select my move tool. So now I can get on it and I can grab this and make it bigger. If I wanted, I could hit in and center it that way. But remember, back to your select tool. I've left two spaces in there. Go back to my select tool, and then I can move it. So say I have this now, and this is going to be writing on the other side of the mug. I'm going to change the font. So up here, you'll see your Arial. So any fonts that you have uploaded will be in here. So don't worry about that. So I'm gonna click any door. Okay. Gonna make it a bit smaller. Okay, so say that was going on my mug now. This was going on one side and this is going on the other. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to print and I'm done. So I go to File and I go to Print. So I use Sawgrass a lot more. So Sawgrass Print Manager. I actually don't have an Epson in here because I want to do an Epson video from scratch. So I have to get a new printer. So I'm waiting on that. So the Sawgrass Print Manager, if you're using Sawgrass, and then all you have to do is hit OK, and your print manager will come up. Okay. Now, if you are an Epson user, I don't have an Epson, but I have a Canon, so it's kind of the same scenario. But down here, you'll go to Color Management, and in here, your ICC profile that you've downloaded will be in here, and you will choose that. In your properties for Epson, this is only for Epson now, not for Sawgrass. So you will have to pick your paper that you were recommended for your ink. Okay, and there's a few things that you need to do in here. It's not too much, it's not that big a deal. But you just make sure these settings are done, and I'll be doing a whole video on that, okay, as soon as the printer comes. But that is how you'll put in your ICC profile, is through your color management, okay, and putting it in your printer profile. All right, so it is that easy, and that is all you do, and you will have a print. So you can mirror your image in Epson settings as well, or if you're not bothered going and doing that, there is a flip button here. So flip horizontally, and you've mirrored your image anyway. So it's not really that big a deal. If you don't find your mirror image button, just flip your image around and it's ready for sublimation. And that is the basics. So all you're doing is really a few things. So I'm going to flip this back. So all we've done here is gone into document setup. We got rid of our margins, put it on landscape. We know how to size. It's over here and transform. So your millimeters, your centimeters, your inches. And remember to change that. You go into document setup and you can change it in here. Okay. And we used text, which was the A. We used our fonts. And then the move tool. If something seems to be going wrong, just go and hit that. I can guarantee you nearly it's that. If you're not able to move something on a page, it's going to be that. Now you can also change your colors here as well. So there is your blues, your oranges, your greens. Okay, and I'll be going more into the colors in a while. Not for this video. This is just to get people printing. So there you have it. It's very, very easy to use Affinity for sublimation. Okay, so you remember your file and your place. All right, so you don't need everything else. It's when you go further and further into it, and I'll be doing videos to gradually get you there. So your crop as well, actually, we done a crop. So there's your vector crop tool, and you can crop with that. So as we go more and more in depth into videos, you will learn a little bit more each time about more designing things. Okay. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you're confident now to get up your Affinity Designer, open it and get something and print. Okay. Have a nice day, everyone.